It's the Sports Peninsula podcast. Coming up, the Detroit Lions are now 6-2 as they head into the second half of the season. The Lions hold a 2-game lead over the Minnesota Vikings and currently sit in the second place in the NFC overall. We'll look back at the first half and talk about the matchup this Sunday in Los Angeles as the Lions travel west to take on the 4-4 Chargers. Now here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula podcast. My name is Dave Jasinski-Drew, and we're going to center us up here, and there we go. And it is November 9th on a Thursday, and we're talking to the roundtable here at the Sports Peninsula podcast. First, we're joined by Coach Andy Shield of the Marine City Mariners. Coach, how you doing?
Doing well, Drew. Doing well. We're transitioning now into fandom. We're in that portion of the sports year for us, and I got a little Michigan State basketball on behind me. They're doing better right now against the Screaming Eagles of Southern Indiana, much better than they did against the Dukes of James Madison.
Mm-hmm.
On the other TV, we got the Wings against the old Habs. So, and then we're talking some Lion football with two great friends. So, what more could we ask for on a Thursday night?
I agree, and we can't talk Lion football without the Uper Brad Harrison, straight out of Rapid River, but coming to us via Wisconsin. Brad, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing fine. Sitting at 6-2 at the midway mark. It's a great place to be. And speaking of college basketball, I'm here in Milwaukee, just supporting the fifth-ranked team in the nation, the Marquette Golden Eagles.
Oh yeah,
talk about a program. Shaka Smart.
Well, and you know what? That'd be a great episode one day because you could almost go on about that. I mean, Shaka Smart was the up and coming star of college basketball coaching when he was at Virginia Commonwealth and taking them to the Final Four there. And then he went, Bright Lights, big city down to Austin and tough sledding and having to beat Kansas. Not easy to do. Having to beat Oklahoma State. Not easy to do. He comes over to a place and it's very familial because, coming in Milwaukee, he's right back on top of the world.
That's right.
Kudos to Brad Harrison and Shaka Smart. And
sometimes I get confused a little bit in my mind because this is the third season of Shaka's program. AP Coach of the Year, Big East regular season, Big East Conference champions. And this is the third year of Dan Campbell. And the way I watch these men build these programs are very similar. They're very similar in their approach of being a consistent message. These men know how to build a program, and it's been fun to watch. And sometimes I just try not to confuse myself. And tonight we're talking Detroit Lions, baby.
Do you ever talk with Shaka from time to time?
Oh yeah, I'm in there.
Awesome.
For sure. Yeah, he's amazing. You should see, if listeners, all right, and we're way off topic here. I don't know, Drew, if you want to cut this thing off. But yesterday was National Signing Day. Go to YouTube, just listen to his press conference. He talked about Marquette players and what a Marquette player is. And the way he finished that press conference was amazing. Because not everybody's a Marquette player. He goes, and we're going to be playing against them. And then he just walked away. It was like, boom.
Love it. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's good confidence in your program and in your skills. That's awesome. It's a good message. Great. Hey, guys, let's talk about the Detroit Lions right now. Okay, we're in the bye week, week 9, coming into week 10 here. The Lions are 6-2. Coach, I'll start with you. Of that record, that 6-2 record, any surprises? Any games you thought they should have won and lost, and any games you thought they lost, they should have won?
They got beat good against the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, that's a loss. They lost that game. That's a blemish. Do I think they could have won the Seattle game? I think they could have. I think if you gave Aaron Glenn that game plan back, I think they would have done some things different defensively to rein in Geno Smith and not let him just roll and run and throw all day like they did. And I do think there would have been a different outcome. I think there could have been a different outcome. But no, I'm perfectly fine and content. I'm not upset with this team. I think they are exactly where we want them to be. And the sky's the limit. I mean, I think the best days are ahead. Coming out of the gates here and going to SoFi is going to be super important to get out of the gates and take care of the Los Angeles Chargers. We are better than the Los Angeles Chargers. We're more consistent than the Los Angeles Chargers. We have to go on the West Coast and play the Los Angeles Chargers, which is not an easy thing to do. But, that we need to set the tone because, I mean, it's very possible. We are looking at a clear double-digit win Detroit Lions team.
That's I like that, Coach. I like that. Brad, the Chargers. We'll get into the preview of that game shortly. But they Coach touched on it. They're inconsistent because the team that I saw, on Monday night, their defense is pretty stout. But I was, and the Jet defense is stout too. So the offense struggled a little bit. But for you, Brad, with this season, I know in the past, when I asked that coach that question, typically the answer would be, yeah, they probably should have beat these three teams and didn't. And then there were these two teams they beat that, smoke and mirrors. But not this year. It's pretty straightforward. This is a good football team, right?
No, this is what year 3 should be in a rebuild the way we were in it. And so no, I don't see anything that's, you kind of take the W and run for the hills. There's none of that. Like the wins have been victories. Even the game against Kansas City at Arrowhead, that was that offensive line and that running game that closed out that game against the defending Super Bowl champions. So yeah, there's no luck going on here. These are men who just are playing really good football, and it's across the board. It's not perfect. I think that's one of the things that actually encouraged me, because we're not going to be playing the Raiders and the Packers and the Bears in the playoffs, right? Like we're going to be playing great football teams, and we haven't played a perfect game yet. We've won 6 of the 8, so that those perfect games are coming, or maybe they probably will never come. But this team can play better.
If they can get close enough in January and possibly early February, we'll be very happy, right? So let's hope it keeps moving forward like the way it is, forward down the field. Guys, let's touch on this season as a whole. Let's start on the offensive side of the football. Coach, let's talk about the passing game. And I mean, I think that kind of starts and stops with Jared Goff. And when you look at Jared Goff statistically, he has been very good this year. 2,100 yards, nearly 2,200 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. He's got a couple rushing touchdowns. Not that he's a runner, but he can handle it when he needs to. But just overall, very solid performance by Jared Goff. Talk about his evolution, Coach, and how you see it. And when we came into Detroit, he was viewed as a bridge. And some people viewed him as just, we got to eat his salary just to make Stafford happy and get those draft picks. But he's been much more than that, right?
He was he was grossly underestimated. And I don't know, his time in Los Angeles has differed from his time in Detroit from a standpoint of just, I think we've given him some more reign and some more responsibility. And I think that's allowed him to play more comfortably and to really kind of bet on himself more. I don't believe he was given that opportunity in Los Angeles. I think that's the McVay show. And then I think McVay realized it was too difficult to communicate back and forth. Neither one of them could make themselves to be the perfect candidate. Jared Goff couldn't be the perfect quarterback for Sean McVay. And probably, Sean McVay couldn't be the perfect coach for Jared Goff either. So what they do, they swap with Detroit. He gives up and delegates some of that quarterback dumb to Matthew Stafford over there in Los Angeles. And we do the same with Jared Goff to a certain degree here with a new man and Dan Campbell and allow Jared Goff to be a thinker and an innovator and a decision maker. And he has all the tools to do that. He's a tremendous leader. He's extremely, extremely well respected in that locker room and esteemed in that locker room. And it's not in the Kirk Cousins type of way. Kirk Cousins is a great guy, but they try to do the cutesy things and put the chains on him and the buffs and all that good stuff. and that's cool. I mean, it's a fun thing. It's a great little bond he has with those. It works in Minnesota. They don't do that here. Jared's got one of the dudes. He's one of the hombres. So, he's been fantastic. The odds-on chances of him being extended here in Detroit, I think, are relatively high. I would think that they are. Money would be an issue because we have other players that we need to pay. But I think Jared Goff knows that as well. And we are in a very good position with this quarterback. If we double those numbers up, we're looking at a 4,500-yard, 24 touchdown, 10-pick guy that's got a very high completion percentage and near 100 QBR. So, I mean, what more could you ask for?
I would 100% agree with you, Coach. I know there's always going to be some detractors that want more, but Jared Goff.
Well, it's the positions you're always going to look down the road. I'm going to look down the road too.
You have to.
I mean, yes, we have Hendon Hooker, and I'm going to look at what could we get. Obviously we're not a day one or day two QB entrant. I don't believe we were day two QB guys this past year. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that's where we would go. But and you're wise to always bring in some young talent, some camp arms, right? Even though we probably are pretty solvent through two levels of our quarterback, depth chart. But I think there's a real good chance this guy's gonna be around for a long time. He's only 29 years old.
Yeah, it's all very important points. And Brad, talking about Goff, I mean, and I would agree with Coach. I think re-upping with Jared Goff's pretty important. But how do you see that possibly transpiring? Do you think they invest in him in a 5-6 year deal, or do you think maybe it's more like a Kirk Cousins deal where it's a shorter term, more guaranteed money in that deal because you have a Hendon Hooker on the roster? What's your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts go to the entire salary cap and the entire roster and the challenges that Brad Holmes is going to face here in the coming years, where we have incredible talent on this roster, young talent that's good, that will need to see a second contract, and others that will earn more than the Lions maybe can afford. And so I think as a fan base that, I don't want to go there right now. I don't want to go there at 6-2, leading the NFC North, being the, top 3 team in the NFC and start thinking about how this thing could unravel based on the way the NFL exists with the salary cap and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, Jared's got another year left. So on this existing deal, do you franchise tag? Does that mean we got him 2 more years, or you're kind of keeping him in Detroit because you need to get Penei Sewell on board and you need to get Decker paid? And I've thought about this, and I haven't given it enough mind share to know where I would go with it, but I know Brad Holmes has. And so with Hendon Hooker in town on his first contract and Jared being who he is, I would want to see this team without Jared Goff. I just don't know if I'm extending him now, just to the way the whole thing's laid out. So it isn't a shot at Goff. It's not a shot at he couldn't be the guy, because I think if he played for another team, the Detroit Lions would be worse. So Holmes just has to figure out how to make this thing happen, and that's a tough job he's got. But he's done pretty well up to now.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, because to me it's like a $10 million gamble. You can get him now maybe for 35 a year. But if you roll the dice and he keeps performing, which you of course would anticipate he does, that number could become 45 real quick. So that's kind of the dilemma he's in too. Do we want to wait or whatever? You bring up a good point about the franchise tag. Most players bristle at that. Although if someone tells you you're going to get 45 million guaranteed this year, maybe that's not such a bad thing. But it is what it is. It depends on the player and the situation. Maybe that works for Jared Goff. And I'll be honest, that's a good point you bring up. That might work. But and then you bring up a point, other guys got to get paid. You've got Jonah Jackson, who's a pending free agent. St. Brown's going to have to get paid down, soon here down the road. You brought up Sewell. We hadn't even really thought much about the fact that he's going to have to get paid, and he's pretty good last I checked. And it's a complicated situation with the cap. There's no question about that. But in terms of this season, Jared Goff certainly has played very, very well. Not showing any signs of any wear and tear at this point. And that's a tribute to probably the next group we should talk about, Coach, and that's the offensive line. Just focusing on them, and we brought up a couple of names. Brad brought up the tackles, Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell. But this unit, we think this week, because Glasgow has been named the starting right guard, we're going to finally see the starting five back together for the first time since week 1 in that Chiefs game. Coach, talk about their performance so far.
Well, let's not be over expectant because for this week, yes, we expect them to gel as long as they can keep healthy. That's no slam at them. This is a very physical game. These are big men that are very strong and very aggressive, and they are going to beat each other up. And the bodies just don't hold up. I mean, if it is that you're uncommon, if you have that kind of durability, you're uncommon. And it usually wind up in Canton, Ohio, with a gold blazer as a result. So, and do we have some of those type of guys on there? Time will tell, because we have a couple talented, linemen that are of that ilk, I guess you could say. But to have, Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Graham Glasgow, and Penei Sewell out there all at the same time, that really should spell some relief for the Lion fan. How long can they stay out there together? Again, time will tell, but it's very unlikely. Our center, Frank Ragnow, is an outstanding player that's got just a debilitating chronic foot issue. Jonah Jackson is a guy that is starting to have some chronic injury issues. Graham Glasgow's replacing a player that has chronic injury issues in Big V. Taylor Decker has had a noted shoulder issue. And then we got the spring chicken, Penei Sewell, 22 years of age. That's,
doesn't miss a snap.
Yep. So coming off of formula into cereal yet. But we need to invest in this group. And I know I'm not, breaking any secrets or stealing any signs here. They're going to need to invest in this position group. And it may need to be done with some higher end draft capital and soon, even though they may not become full-time starters. There could be possibilities on the interior at one of the guard positions. Possibly. We are going to have to look at an offensive tackle too, a starting caliber one, sooner rather than later, because eventually Penei Sewell is going to go to that left side. And he is the replacement for Taylor Decker whenever that time comes. Lest we forget how long Taylor Decker's played for the Detroit Lions already, too. I mean,
was he Bob Quinn's first pick?
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, we're a little ways away from that nowadays. So, I mean, he's going to be looking at years 8, 9, somewhere like that. And that's a long time. That's a long time in this league. So, it's a great position group. It's going to be the cornerstone of this team, and I think of the teams moving forward in the franchise under the mold of Dan Campbell. He knows where it's done, and we are in a very good position moving forward with the health of our guys, because we've got some gems when they're healthy.
Yeah, great points, Coach. Great points.
We have good depth too. I mean, the depth has really served itself well. If you think, Graham Glasgow is a part of that depth, but now he's a starter. Awasika has done some nice things for us. We had the young fellow from
Swordsdale. I mean, they played an entire game as a rookie at that.
Yes, he did.
Part.
Yes, he did. An Ivy League kid on the College of William and Mary. So I mean, that's impressive too. Dan Skips, giving us some reps still. Mm-hmm. So hey. we have some depth here too. It is fortified somewhat as we speak, but we need to continue to work on doing that. It is the cornerstone of how things go and tick here with Lions offense.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right, Coach. And Brad, we talked about, would this team be where they're at without Jared Goff? And I think we all agreed, no, they would not. Where would they be without, I mean, not just this line, but the depth that they've had? Because, like you said, we haven't played as an entire unit since week 1, so almost over 2 months since then, and yet they're still 6-2. Talk about that.
No, it's the coaching, right? It's the talent that's brought in and the staff that's coaching the kids up. I mean, to have, I mentioned Sorsdal play as much as he has as a rookie is impressive, and Coyote is the same, right? Like, probably not expecting that type of depth to play as many snaps as they have, but guess what? They had to. So, fantastic way to coach these guys up. The only one that I really don't want to see out there would be Matt Nelson. Like, I don't need to see him out of the field longer.
Then you're hurt.
He's got that banged up ankle. So
yeah.
Oh, done. All right. Well, there we go.
Yeah, so you definitely don't want to see that. I mean, he did his job when he got in there. I mean, he do what he needed to do. But yeah, obviously you don't want to. They have enough injury concerns on that line, right? And let's face it, Ragnow's toe issue is not going away. It ain't going away. And I mean,
that brings you back to paying him too one day, because he's only do this for a high dollar.
Yeah,
I mean, his foot's killing him. You're gonna have to compensate that man for that.
Yeah, and it's a tough deal. But overall, guys, I agree with you both. This line has been an integral part of this team's success. They built this team around that line. I mean, even you got to give Bob Quinn some credit. I mean, he took Frank Ragnow. Frank Ragnow. I mean, we were just like not shocked, but we were just like, oh, we didn't expect that. Decker was expected, but those are two big parts of that line. And then getting Penei Sewell, I mean, Brad Holmes certainly recognized that right away. It's very tempting to go in other directions. I mean, Micah Parsons was there, and and they had other receivers on the board at that point, besides Jamar Chase. And then, but that's the direction they went, and we're certainly happy for it as fans. But guys, let's talk the output of this line's play really starts becoming an issue, centers on this running back situation here, and the way David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs have played. I mean, David Montgomery with 385 yards rushing this year, and he's missed some time. He looks like he's coming back for week 10 here against the Chargers, and that's huge. Look at the youngster, Jahmyr Gibbs, the number 12 overall pick, 390 yards, 99 yards rushing, almost 400 yards rushing, a couple touchdowns. And oh, by the way, Craig Reynolds has chipped in with 179. Guys, this team has rushed for over 1,000 yards already this season collectively. They're on pace for over 2,100 yards rushing just amongst predominantly with those three guys. Coach, talk about that situation. I mean, and it's a total different group. Last year we were talking about DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Oh, not totally different. Craig Reynolds was there. He's the one constant. But you took the top two guys out and put another two guys in, and business as usual. Good stuff, right?
It's running back by committee, and literally, and committee members change, and from year to year, not across the board, but in this case, half of them are new or more are new, and it's the smart way to do it, because there is the bell cow way, the Derrick Henry way, the Christian McCaffrey way. There are those that places that do that, but we've seen what it done when you really go heavy on one player, what it's done to Dalvin Cook. And it got him enough injuries and bumped around to where he's no longer in his first destination. We've seen just players basically just kind of satellite out into outer space. Leonard Fournette appears to be basically done. Todd Gurley.
I mean, he went to beat Buffalo, picked them up, but yeah, he's certainly not.
He's not what he once was. Really, with Adrian Peterson probably being the last guy that really did it for a long, long, long period of time, where Derrick Henry is heading in that direction. This is the way to do it, and you need to have almost equal parts talent as you would if you had that quote unquote bell cow running back. David Montgomery acts in that role. His role is, I guess, most similar to that with the Detroit Lions, but it's landed him, with a tough leg injury that got him out, out of some games for a couple of weeks. So as you can see, when you run as dominantly as the Detroit Lions plan on doing, when it's that much of a part of your offensive scheme and your game plans from week to week, it's going to take its toll on your talent. And, our two top backs have both suffered from injuries already this year, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, and look how well they're still doing. You need to have the Craig Reynolds type players to come in and fortify roles, and have more depth than that too. As we've now, Jamar Jefferson's been back. We've had briefly
Knight.
Bam Knight, Donovan Knight, Divine Azigbo. They now have back, I believe. Who did they sign to the practice squad as a running back? They made a move. I know they did.
I thought that was Jefferson when they.
That's what. Okay, yes. I'm sorry, Jahmyr Jefferson. There you go. So there's a lot of different players getting carries for the Lions in that backfield, and we need to have that kind of rotational aspect to it. But Montgomery and Gibbs, they're working really, really well. And hey, DeAndre Swift's having a great year in Philadelphia. He's having a great year there.
Absolutely,
more power to him. But Jamal Williams, I think, is a fit down in New Orleans. I really do. And more power to him down there. But, hey, we did what we had to do as well, and it looks like it was the right call because we have two gems along with a great depth piece in Craig Reynolds.
Yeah, no, well said, Coach. And Brad, we're all three of us. We've been fans since that wonderful 1980 season when Billy Sims' rookie season took the town by storm, so to speak, with the Silver Rush group as well. But we're a little spoiled in the 80s and 90s. We had a Billy Sims, and we lost him. Then we had a Barry Sanders, and we had him for 10 years. But I admit I bristled at because I was used to that as a fan. And then when I remember when Mooch came in to coach the Lions, he was a proponent of running back by committee. He said this is the future, and he was very, very right. I didn't like it at first because I thought, well, how's that going to work? Boy, it has to work now. I mean, like Coach said, that's the exception now. It's not the standard. But talk about this group as a whole. In my view, I haven't seen a group for the Lions this strong since you got to go back to 93, the only year Barry got hurt, and they still were able to supplement with some really strong performances by their backups in that season. And they were in, beautiful thing. That was the last time the Lions won the division. And I won't talk about
Eric Lynch.
You're talking Eric Lynch and Derek Moore. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, they each had 100-yard games in the times that Barry was out. So it's like, yeah, I
Derek
love
Moore
it.
had more touchdowns than Barry that year, didn't he?
Probably had more carries.
They'd pull him out, put in more to run it from the 1-yard line, drive people crazy.
I know.
Fans crazy.
But
no,
it's a good group.
I would tell it is a good group. It's a talented group. I mean, they used a high draft pick to get Gibbs, and the Montgomery piece came when Williams and the Lions couldn't come to an agreement. And I just think that shows the strength of that leadership in the front office. And I do think, I think this running back group is extremely competent and talented, but the confidence comes from the offensive line in front of them. That's why Jamal Williams, they didn't stretch it. He wanted what he wanted. The Lions are going to pay him what they were going to pay him. And they felt like, we got another guy who we could pay what we want to pay a running back because of this offensive line. And guess what? David Montgomery was suffering in Chicago playing behind that offensive line. You know why he came here. because this has got to be fun to be behind these guys. So, it's a talented group. They're all here for the right reason. It'll just get interesting these next 9 weeks with the number of snaps each guy's getting and the results that they're getting from that. I mean, these are big time decisions Ben Johnson's going to have to make on who's getting what. And I can imagine it's going to be close to a 50-50 thing, but maybe Gibbs gets a little more than Montgomery does as the year goes on. But you know what's going to happen? You're going to have some fresh legs come the playoffs. Get Craig Reynolds his yards too, because we are now playing for the postseason, guys. We've got to strategize for that, and fresh legs are going to help us. Christian McCaffrey might be a little tired by the time the middle of January comes around.
That's no joke. Absolutely.
He's going to have higher miles.
Swift might not be healthy. I can't believe. I mean, I'm happy for the kid, how well he's played. I didn't have a problem with it because he's never been healthy.
No.
Here.
That's right.
He's healthy now. Oh, man. What a year he's having. But he might be wore out, too.
Hey, that none of that.
It comes around.
Well, they let Miles Sanders walk, and he kind of has become pedestrian down in Carolina.
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift gets brought in. We got him for a 7th-round draft pick, I think, in 2044, and he's gonna be in Honolulu.
But
if that's where that game is played, still, I'm not even sure if that's where it's at.
They play like
game or
game.
I'll be honest, guys. It might be played on Mars. I don't know. But I don't even really watch it. I like when our guys get named to it, but that's about the extent of it for me. But you bring up a good point, Brad. Yeah, I mean, they're the top team in the league in the conference right now is really relying on Swift a lot. And they have other backs, Gainwell and Boston Scott. I mean, and they've got guys there, but Swift's been the bell cow, and McCaffrey's certainly the bell cow down in Frisco. Although I read that Deebo Samuel's coming back, and I know he gets some carries. That'll help them. He's another guy not long for full seasons. He's always got a red cross next to his name typically. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to see that happen, but it's just the law of averages says it will, and it has. So Detroit's in good situation. But guys, let's pivot now. Okay, we know that this offensive line has played great. They've been banged up. They played great. Jared Goff's I'm going to say he's been great this year. He's had his moments where he wasn't so good, but overall, we'll take Jared Goff's performance all day long. The running game's been very good. But I kind of a guy that almost the straw that stirs the drink a little bit here. Amon-Ra St. Brown in the passing game, and he's missed a game this year, but this guy's been nothing but money when he plays. 57 catches, 665 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And, Coach, when we do our talk and our film reviews, man, we talk a lot about Amon-Ra St. Brown, and not just getting in the way blocking downfield, but aggressive blocking downfield, crisp route running, rarely dropping passes, just getting open constantly, and is a not only a go-to guy for Jared Goff, but an elite go-to guy. Your thoughts on St. Brown's performance this year so far?
Oh, I mean, in Marine City, Michigan, it's down now. I don't know if China Township made them take it down or what, but there was a banner, a full-on billboard-sized banner wrapped around some trees in a front yard of Amon-Ra St. Brown in China Township, Michigan, here in the last couple of weeks that said fight. I mean, this guy embodies the Detroit Lions. He's kind of almost I think he's a great candidate to be the face of the franchise right now in many ways. He just embodies who the Detroit Lions are. They are tough. They are rugged. They're built up. They're also pretty. They also look good at what they do, but they do it a hard, efficient, physical way. It's everything Detroit Lions wrapped in one player is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And he's a guy that's missed a game and is looking to catch 114-ish balls this year. If things don't change, we're looking towards, 1350 in the yard production area, somewhere in and around there, maybe 1330 to 1350 if things don't change, and about 6 touchdowns. Definitely wide receiver one here. In a room that, we've all long been concerned about, and we have room for improvement. And I'm sure we're going to get to that here. And there's also some other key players in this position group that have performed well. But Amon-Ra St. Brown is the face of this offense. There is no two doubts about that in regards to the passing game and maybe the overall offense in general.
Yeah, great point, Coach. And Brad, I'm going to ask you, I mean, did you, when they drafted Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round, did you ever in your wildest dreams anticipate this was going to be the output? This is what he was going to bring to the table for the Detroit Lions?
No, it had everything to do with his hair that night. Like, what? He had yellow hair. So who is this guy? I know his brother played for the Packers and was terrible. So what are we doing? No, I had no idea. Thankfully, I'm doing what I'm doing, and that scouting staff is doing what they're doing because they knew exactly what they were going to get. I remember that video where even when they passed on the receiver in the 3rd round, and Sheila asked a question like, "Well, what about the receiver?" He said, "We've got this guy at USC." Brilliant how that played out. So I couldn't agree with Coach more about this is the type of player you want to have on your roster to lead the ones who can't figure it out on their own, right? Like Khalif Raymond is doing what he's doing because he's seen what Amon-Ra St. Brown is doing, and he's replicating it. That's brilliant. There's greatness around you. Follow greatness and get as close to that as you can. And that's what this is. It's an incredible talent that's on the roster. I think about who's the, whatever, MVP, right? Like, I don't know if it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, but man, why wouldn't it be? You could go all these different areas to get who's the best player on the team. Well, I'll tell you what, you can debate that. We can debate it all night, and somebody's going to be right when they say Amon-Ra St. Brown because he really is a tremendous. It's what's inside of him is what makes him great, and it's just the willingness, the want to do what he's doing. So this is a guy who's going to earn a second contract with us, and we got to figure that out. Once again, I hate even go. I've gone there twice tonight, and I hate that at 6-2. But what a special moment. This is just great, guys. When we're older than we are now, we're going to talk about this kid. Remember when? This is one of the guys, and I just there's joy, man. I'm just so happy about it.
Yeah, and he's joined by a few folks in that room, like you guys talked about here. Josh Reynolds has had a nice season so far. Very, very very timely are his catches, and they're usually impactful. First downs and touchdowns. 397 yards and 3 scores. I'll touch on Laporte in a little bit as tight end, but let's talk about him right now. 434 yards and 4 touchdowns and 43 catches as a rookie tight end. We'll talk about him in depth in a moment. Khalif Raymond, you talked about, Brad, 231 yards and a touchdown. He's got 18 catches. Here's the guy, though, Coach, we need to talk about here. Jameson Williams in limited duty so far. His suspension was reduced to 4 games, and he hasn't seen a lot of action. And let's face it, it's been a rough first half. Any Lion higher profile players had a rough first half was probably Jameson Williams. That's a tough one for a young guy who came into the league injured and really didn't see the field much last year, and then gets suspended beginning of the year. And we can go on and on about it, but I mean, do you see a light at the end of the tunnel in the second half for Jameson Williams? What's his window looking like here for the second half?
I do. I do see light at the end of the tunnel for him. He's going to get opportunities. We've just acquired Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's 1 year out from his breakout season of 800 yards himself. So DPJ is going to be involved in the offense. I don't know whose reps are going to be diminished because of that. I would not expect Jameson Williams' reps to be depleted. We'll see how that works. Basically Marvin Jones's roster spot has now been filled by Donovan Peoples-Jones. I don't think that's whose role Donovan Peoples-Jones is filling. And somebody's going to be sliding back down into that area. I think, if you were just going to be looking at people that could be candidates to be down in Marvin Jones's role, that probably is Jameson Williams. But I do expect that he's going to have more than 6 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown. I think you can easily, pump, 15-ish catches onto that, maybe a couple more scores. And I tell you what, okay, so let's say, he pops 25 catches for, 300 yards and 3-4 touchdowns. Okay, well, that's a better year too. He had one touchdown in year one. So we'll see where it goes from there. But we all expect more from Jameson Williams. I am not going to question his heart and soul. I am not going to do that. He's a young man that can be seen regularly at Little Caesars Arena at both Piston and Red Wing games. I think he has season tickets to both. So he's endeared himself here. He's trying his hardest. He's a young man trying to figure out life too. He's a young kid living in an area he's never lived before. And it seems like he's trying to do things the right way, with the exception of a few entanglements with some gambling applications on his phone. But that has rectified itself, and I think there's going to come a time where what J-Mo did is not even going to be illegal in the eyes of the NFL, or a violation in the eyes of the NFL down the road. So let's just get stronger. Let's just get more physically able, and let's get to be a better receiver. Let's get better at our drop rate and those kinds of things. Because if you can take care of those kinds of things, J-Mo, you're going to be a really wealthy guy. Here or elsewhere comes contract number 2.
Yeah, I agree with you, Coach. And, let's jump back to Mr. Laporta, Brad. Let's talk about Sam Laporta a little bit. I know we certainly liked him coming out of Iowa. We certainly hoped the Lions would get him. We did expect it. We were hoping day 2. Didn't expect to be that high, but oh my goodness. I mean, and this is not a knock on Hockenson. I think we said this in the last review and over the Raider game. He's just been better, and Hockenson was good. I mean, TJ Hawkinson's now the highest paid tight end in the league, and Sam Laporta is showing out. Your thoughts on Laporta so far?
Well, just the mindset of this rookie. I mean, I've heard some interviews where he said, I want to be Jared Goff's security blanket. Like, yes, you should be as the tight end, but as a rookie, that's a confidence that is rare. So the kid is more than we could hope for 8 games into a career. And the only concern I have, and this is just made up, is what does a 17-game season look like for a rookie? What does a playoff run look like for a rookie? We're counting on a kid to do something that he's never done. But I just made that up. Like, we don't know until it happens if it's a problem. So it's just it's a joy to watch him play. I don't know. Sometimes when they pronounce his name a little different on some of these broadcasts, Laporta. You hear this on some of it? No, it's Laporta, man. Like, what are we trying to do here? But I do look forward to. I don't know how you get better. To be honest with you, the blocking is good. The route running is good. The contest catches. I don't know what else I could ask from a tight end, more or less a rookie. So, nose to the grindstone, stay in the book, don't mess up the plays, be where you're supposed to be. Those are the things that the consistency, I think, is probably what will really set him apart from the TJ Hawkinsons of the world that we never, he has extreme talent. Consistency he drove us a little crazy sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. But we hadn't seen that yet here.
No, not at all. Not at all. That's a great point. And he's had a couple drops. I mean, everyone does. I mean, nobody's perfect, but overall, Sam Laporte has been outstanding, and you'd hope that he would start. You'd hope that he would contribute. I don't know if anybody really had in their mind that Sam Laporte is going to be one of the best tight ends in football halfway through the season. Man, that's some good stuff right there, and that's what breeds winning, right, guys? Now, looking at the next half of the season, offensively, you've got the Bears twice, you got the Vikings twice, you got the Packers at home, you got this Chargers game coming up, and then I got a trip to Dallas too. I know I'm missing a couple of games there, but overall, the Chargers game and Cowboys game are both road games that are going to be tough. But realistically, it's not unrealistic to think that this team could actually double it up here and actually maybe go 7-2 in the second half. But Coach, what do you think this offense has to do to ensure that happens?
Well, keep the running game, active, keep it relevant, add wrinkles, preserve it, whatever the case may be. Become better pass protectors. Picking up, get better at picking up some certain blitz packages. It seems as if they struggle with a little bit. I'm not going to say stay healthier. I mean, that's part of that's going to be the luck of the draw. Yeah. They're trying to stay healthy. I mean, that's not something, and obviously, if we can do those things, we're going to become the kings of time of possession. We're going to be the kings of first or second, middle, and third and short. We're going to move the football. We are going to shorten games and drain clock and make at least ensure that the score is close in most cases. And we'll become a very efficient passing game because, we'll make it very obvious and easy for us to be able to convert certain throws based off of how people are defending our run game. So we got to make sure that we're running the football and running it very efficiently and effectively. First and foremost, in my mind.
Yep. That's definitely should work. I mean, that's the recipe right there, right? I mean, maybe
it goes without saying, but I mean, I just think that's we have to stay with it.
Yeah, don't deviate from what got you there, right? I mean, that's it. And Brad, you touched on this and when we reviewed the Monday night game last week. We felt like we got too cute in the first half, especially in the red zone. Definitely don't want to see. I like the wrinkles. We all like the creativity of Johnson, and it's worked. But yeah, you got to pick your spots a little bit. But your thoughts on this offense going in the second half?
Yeah, that's the growth area, right? Like the growth area is the red zone right now. I mean, we're not hitting on all cylinders there. So once again, what we said earlier in this pod, like we haven't played a perfect game. We're 6-2. We've left points out on the field. And I love that the staff knows that, right? Like they're not beating their chests saying, yeah, we got this figured out. No, we don't have it figured out because we left points out there. And so this staff is humble enough and smart enough to know how to self-scout. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we see differently in these coming weeks on this offensive side of the ball, because I think picking the right, let's pick the right spot where we can get tricky and cute, because it's fun and it catches people off guard, and that's a good thing. Keep them on their toes, but I don't see it in the red zone much right now, and especially with the offensive line as they're healthy, and if they continue to stay healthy, we're not going to have to go that way. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun month plus to see how this changes.
Yeah, you got it, man. I agree with you guys. I mean, it's let's stay the course, right? Let's just stay the course. It's working. It's working. They're number 2 in the conference right now. They're a game back of Philly. I am. I would put this offense against any team's offense at this point, because of how well-rounded it is and how strong the offensive line is. As a fan, I have extreme confidence in this team, and they've proven it with their depth. They've proven it over and over again this season, even late, and even the second half of last season. So it's not just an 8-game snapshot. We're also talking about the last 9-10 games of last season as well. So this is a carryover. We're talking an entire season's worth of football, and this offense has been overall very good. But, Coach, let's go to the other side of the football now, the defense. Not going to wax poetic on a lot of statistics here, but let's talk about the groups as a whole. Let's start with that defensive line. A very improved, not so much a personnel group, but just schematically and effect and getting healthy too, obviously helps. But talk about this defensive line, how they played this season.
Well, I mean, specifically the whole unit. I mean, and I'm a defensive guy, Drew. So we could have done 50 minutes on the defense and 10 on the offense, and we'd have been just fine with that. But well, and to be honest and truthful, the defense has carried this team the entire year, minus the Seattle game. I have been the reason why they're 6-2, and I think there's some truth to that. Had we been in some ways in which we were maybe in year one and parts of the year last year, we have not seen that. We've gone through long stretches where one score happens or a couple of field goals happen. So this has been a great defense, and the defensive line is much improved, and it's also had its fair share of injuries. But I think by and large, we're getting healthier on the edge. James Houston's close to coming back. And, we've had some, very good play by guys like John Kaminsky. Julian Okwara has been a real nice add this year. Of course, we have Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, that goes without saying. His productivity has been solid. It's, and yes, he's another one of those guys that you could say face with a franchise. Would like to see just a little bit more steadiness out of him. And then, the production will be what it is. We'll also know that he's, the hired gun as far as our pass rush goes. Josh Paschal has been healthy at times, and when he has been, he's been a very, very high impact player. Isaiah Buggs has been healthy at times, and when he has been at the top of his game, he has been an elite starting caliber player. Aleem McNeil is my defensive line MVP. That is my defensive line MVP. And if I were to get a Lions jersey right now, there are two that I would get. One of them is number 58, Penei Sewell, because that was my number in high school as well.
True.
I'm a fan of the number 58, and I would get number 54, Aleem McNeil. Aleem McNeil has been great. He has been great. He is often overlooked. He is not talked about enough. We want to talk about the, Clockwork Orange Eye, Aiden Hutchinson all the time, and the edge rushers, and this, that, and the other thing. And John Kaminsky, who deserves, great pat on the back. But Aleem McNeil, that is the Lions MVP on the defensive line, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Coach. And Brad, he's McNeil's got 4 sacks on the season, 7 quarterback hits, 16 tackles. He's been rock solid. He's been more than rock solid. He's been very good. 97, of course, he gets a lot of attention, and he has 4.5 sacks himself. But your thoughts on the defensive line? I mean, Julian Okwara, Coach mentioned, Julian Okwara almost didn't make it out of camp. He was on the bubble, and then he was hurt, but he's been very effective. So whatever happened, got a wake-up call. He's playing some ball. But your thoughts on this defensive line, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, I just reiterate what Coach just said. I mean, that's specifically about McNeil. And he's out there every play, right? Like, it seems like he's not on the bench being subbed out. Like, he can play 3 downs and does well. It's as far as the production of that line, we still want more there. That right, the opposite end of Aiden, there's just not a lot of production coming there. I do think there's the opportunity for Julian, right? Like, they're looking for somebody. Charles Harris was the starter, and this is for Julian Okwara. I think they're going to give him a chance to get more snaps, to come with Aiden until Houston comes back. So, there's some depth in there. There's, the Levi Onwuzurike is finally giving us snaps. The second pick overall, or second round pick from a few years ago. So, I think that rotation of Benito Jones, of Bugs. I don't know if Bugs likes it. I think he wants to be out there more than he is. But hey, when you're out there, make the most of it. And so you got Benito, you got Isaiah, you've got Kaminsky. So, I do think there's a lot of work going on in, Monday through Saturday about how to get more production from this defensive line. And once again, this will just be a fascinating 9 weeks just to see how it comes to, because what are we, 3 weeks now of Aiden not getting a sack, and he's a menace, but he wants that quarterback, and it's been a minute. So that's a fascinating group to watch, and an overachieving group based on what our expectations were coming into the season.
Yeah, and then you factor in young Broderick Martin, the third round pick.
Yeah, he got some snaps last week, didn't he? Or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and that's encouraging. So we hope to see more of that. And let's face it, guys. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, inevitably injuries happen, and they've already hit the Lions. I mean, Houston's been out, Pascal's been out. These guys are getting reps. They're playing in games. They're ready to go. And it's different from offensive line, right, Coach? I mean, the O-line, your starters pretty much play every snap. It's not, you don't often platoon offensive linemen. So defensive line, I mean, this team is able to roll 2 entire units at you. And let's face it, by about midway through the third quarter, they start wearing down the opposition's offensive line. And then we've seen the offensive line for the Lions wear down the opponent's defensive line because they don't have the depth that the Lions have. A lot of teams don't have that, and it's a beautiful thing. I think it's working very well. I agree. They've been the most important group of this first half of the season for this team. They've been very, very good. I want to talk about the next group, that next level back that I think is the most improved group on this team, and that's the linebackers. We started seeing better play from Anzalone. We loved Rodrigo. What a refreshing thing to have a 6th round pick be your starter and play well. But Coach, things have changed this year, and they haven't missed a beat. They've gotten even better, and Rodrigo's still playing good football. Talk about the linebackers.
Yeah, they really address this position group from a personnel aspect. And that's not any shade, any specific players or anything like that. It was always the position group that needed to be addressed the most in regards to a different level and different type of player that they were looking for. And in doing so, it resulted in some tough business decisions and things that are not a bad thing, folks. Rodrigo. Malcolm Rodriguez not starting at linebacker anymore is not a bad thing. He's an exceptional teammate and a very, very vital player. He plays an extremely important role for the Detroit Lions. And honestly, he's really showed some great versatility and great flexibility and being that team guy. He's, currently serving as the fullback on the team right now. So Malcolm Rodriguez, we're talking from the back end. If that's your last linebacker, we address the position group all right. Because we've got Jalen Reeves-Maybin, who's a special teams ace. He's a high-level NFL special teamer.
Yeah.
We have Anthony Pittman still, who's also a high-level special teamer, Wayne State Warrior. We now have Derek Barnes playing at a different level. He's a true, and we're going with 2 linebacker looks a lot of the time as well. So our third linebacker oftentimes is Captain Jack Campbell, he was Captain Jack of Iowa. And we see what the Iowa defense still is today under the leadership of Phil Parker, the defensive coordinator, former Michigan State Spartan under the early days of George Perlis and the last days of Muddy Waters. As a player, is the defensive coordinator there in Iowa, and man, can that guy produce players, at the NFL level, let alone great Big Ten defenses. Jack Campbell's a great young asset, somebody that's going to have a bigger role moving forward. Eventually, he will replace Alex Anzalone in full. Alex Anzalone's nowhere near that time. He's got plenty of tread on his tire, and he's the anchor of this linebacker group. That, as you said, Drew, you said it perfect. They are very much upgraded and a most improved position group on the team.
Yeah, and it's been very impressive, and it's been very noticeable. Really, other than the exception would be the Seahawk game. I mean, you could say the Raven game, but I would argue I think the offense kind of hung them out to dry a little bit. They were on the field way too long. Coach
Glenn has done a marvelous job with our defense. I'm glad he's here, and I don't want him to go. But we got to figure out some things with a running quarterback. That our scheme is not quite where it needs to be either. Yeah, and honestly, if you check out the Chalk Talk episode from and in the reviews for the Ravens game specifically, that's touched on a lot, and you'll see it on a lot of the plays that we highlight, and you can see what Coach is talking about there, just how they're tactically rushing and trying to contain a quarterback. It's really not happening, and they need to make some adjustments, because let's face it, the better quarterbacks in this league right now are Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Even they run. They can run the ball, and they do it well. So yeah, and even guys like Justin Fields, even though he's not playing now, I'm expecting the Lions will probably see him later in the year. You got to be ready for it. But getting back to the linebackers, Brad, I mean, what I like to see is a linebacker leading the team in tackles, and Alex Anzalone has 57 tackles so far this season. He's been a monster. I mean, he's taken like the level of aggression to another level out there, and I think you can see he's a leader out there. He's a captain, and it's reverberating the rest of the team. Talk about their performance overall, linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I mean, what we're getting from Anzalone is, I always think about the 90s Lions, and when Anzalone first got here, I just equated him to Scott Kolakowski, and he's just a faster Chris Spielman right now. Like, he's just he just knows what's going to happen. The work he puts in before Sunday, just studying the opponent, it shows on Sunday that he knows exactly what this offense does. Now, I do think this is the ceiling. I just can't imagine better Anzalone, right? And I'm not saying that as a shot. I'm just saying he is playing as good as Alex Anzalone can play, and I do wonder about where our ceiling is on this linebacker crew when it comes to mobile quarterbacks. Do we have the speed on this roster that it's going to take to stop these fast quarterbacks? I mean, we'll see against Jalen Hurts in the playoffs, right? But Campbell is a great addition. I think he comes across as somebody that's just so unsatisfied with what's going on with the time on the field and the play that he misses, and they had him out at that Sam backer, and it was like he was a step off, and it just burns him. So I just think he's got a great fire about him. Derek Barnes has been a remarkable, for us to get better by not just going and getting free agents is a testament to the men in that room. And I appreciate what they're doing. I hope they're good enough to get us to Super Bowl.
Well, I'll tell you what, you think about statistics. I said Anzalone has 57 tackles. Jack Campbell and Derek Barnes are third on the team with 34 tackles apiece. I love that the linebacking core is leading the charge in tackles. You don't.
They're sure tacklers too. They are sure tacklers.
Great point, because in the recent past we've had like safeties and corners but safeties leading the team in tackles. That means guys are getting to the second and third level, right, Coach? And not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. Unless that safety's Troy Polamalu or someone like that. Probably not what you want. This is encouraging to see. 3 of your top 4 tacklers on this team this year are linebackers. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the secondary, Coach. Now, this team, I think the Lions certainly invested in the most, this group. But, boy, good thing they did, because they lost a lot of guys to injury. And once again, next man up, they step up. I'm not saying they've been as effective as the offensive line has been, but they've certainly been pretty damn good. Talk about the defensive backs.
With the rotation of players they've had to play because of injury, it is truly amazing. And yes, the productivity has been there. They've really not looked out of place too often. Rather, Baltimore, it was not a good day. It was not a good day in Baltimore. And Seattle threw all over us too. The 6 games that we've won, the defensive backfield has looked fantastic, and that includes against the Kansas City Chiefs. Mm-hmm. So, I'm really, really happy with our defensive backfield. And guess who has been the most consistent performer? The one that wasn't drafted.
Jerry
Jacobs. An undrafted free agent signing out of the University of Arkansas by Brad Holmes.
He has been outstanding.
He has. He's one of the league's leaders in interceptions. Kirby Joseph is now climbing that ladder, and he's being real productive. Tracy Walker is all over the place and showing things, and he's a fan favorite. He's a kind of a homegrown guy that's a little bit more of a veteran presence. Cam Sutton has been just an absolute stalwart of consistency. We love Brian Branch. I tell you what, there's kids all over Southeast Michigan with a mouthpiece in their helmet now. And that's where they're putting it. And his play is the reason why kids are doing that, because he is such a good football player. Mm-hmm. And what he's brought to the table. And then we've had Gardner Johnson, who's hinted at is wanting to come back, maybe for a longer term.
That'd be nice.
That he might be able to come back. He's been out. Mosley's been out. And I'm forgetting somebody Will Harris has contributed and done a nice job. So, it's been a position group in whole has been something else. And, we're getting a lot of mileage out of a lot of guys and a position group that was highly invested in, and rightfully so. And really, we should be really, really pleased with how our defensive backs have played.
Yeah, Khalil Dorsey and Chase Lucas are 2 guys that have been outstanding on special teams.
Absolutely.
And they've had to come in and spot duty. Especially, Lucas has certainly a corner at times, but yeah, just they had to invest in this group to get better. They traded Jeff Okudah, and Omararie's gone. Melifonwu is still on the team now at safety, but he's not playing a lot, but he's gotten some time. But man, Brad, what's that?
Another name to mention for sure. He's been a good contributor.
Yeah, absolutely. But Brad, Tracy Walker, he lost his starting job out of the gates, and Brian Branch is a big part of that, and obviously still trying to get back to 100%, probably not at full speed, but oh my goodness, has he been? He's been hitting like a freight train over the last few weeks. Talk about your thoughts on the defensive backs overall.
Yeah, there's no hole out there, right? There's nobody that we're going, oh man, they're going to pick on this kid all afternoon because he's not up to the standard of the NFL. Like, we've had players like that I'm not going to list them off because it's too painful for all three of us and our listeners.
Thank you.
Corey Raymond, but there's nobody like that in this backfield. They wanted to pick on Jerry. They went at him. Didn't work. Cam Sutton is a lockdown right now, just an absolute lockdown, and that is that's a testament to everybody in that backfield. Because here's the other thing too. A lot of these sacks that we're seeing, they're coverage sacks, right? Like it feels like these offensive plays that are coming against us are lasting forever, right? Like because Aiden's just being held more times than others, and what have you. And I think that just has to do with these DBs and the safeties and what they have going on. This entire side of the ball is playing very well together. So to Coach's point about Aaron Glenn, to Dre Bly coming in here, coaching up this backfield, great job, guys. Keep it up. These guys have the ability to have some W's coming our way in the postseason because we've gone up against some good receivers now too this year that couldn't get it done against us. So it's been impressive. I think Coach said it, like, this defense is the reason the record is what the record is. And this defense will ride too. Like, this doesn't just happen at Ford Field. This goes to Tampa and gives up 2 field goals.
Yeah,
that's it. Plays against the Raiders on a Monday night and gives up a touchdown. That's in today's NFL. That's an impressive group of guys. So, yeah, there is no concern for me back there because there isn't the deficient player that can't do it. Will Harris is close to that, but guess what? We're not relying on Will Harris anymore. Will Harris can come in and do what he has to do on a limited basis. He doesn't have to start at cornerback.
Yeah, and he's been effective doing so.
Yeah, that's where he belongs. He belongs in that spot or that spot role.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys brought up Dre Bly. I don't think he deserves credit for this. Jerry Jacobs, to me, I don't know. I'm not in the room. I'm not in the practice field, but I can't help but think that Dre Bly's helped Jerry Jacobs develop because he kind of plays like Dre Bly. If folks that remember number 32, he was a big signing back in the Matt Millen era even, and Dre Bly could sometimes gamble and lose, but when he gambled and won, it was big time. And he was very tough to play against. I wouldn't call him a lockdown corner, but I would say he wasn't somebody you were going to trifle with out of the gates. He could hurt you out there, and I think he's really helped this team. Losing Gardner Johnson so early, you could see his impact, not just on the field, but emotionally for this team. And I think it's still reverberating. And I think he's still a big part of that, even though he's not able to play. But you talk about sure tackling. You guys brought it up. Brian Branch and Tracy Walker, these guys. I can name them all. But the tackling has been a huge difference in this team. Lions teams of the past, that could be a problem. Lot of issues there. Not this year at all. The teams that have been able to move the ball against the Lions have had to earn it, and that wasn't always the case. So that's how good teams win, and that's simple. Just to kind of wrap this review up, guys. The future's certainly bright for the second half. We're not going to talk about playoff seeding or anything like that, even though I said they are number 2 in the conference right now. They're leading the NFC North. The NFC North is for them to lose, and I don't foresee that happening. I don't think any of us do. This game coming up, though, I think is important to talk about. This Charger game. It's one of the tougher games on their schedule that's left. Coach, you touched on it earlier. They're inconsistent, but when they're good, they're very good. Let's talk about the Chargers for a little bit. What do the Lions have to do offensively to be successful in this game?
Well, I just would like to add too, Jack Fox and Riley Patterson have been real good special team players.
Certainly.
Especially Fox. He's one of the best in the league. Riley Patterson has not hurt us. We are concerned about his long range capability, and that's something that once we can address it, I bet you that we will. Won't be in 2023, might not even be in 2024, but when that becomes something that's of need, Riley Patterson may be moved on from, but in the interim, he's been great. We're going to be having, I think it's McQuaid is going to become our long snapper now because we've had the injury.
And he was signed. And he was signed in the offseason. He actually was beat out, but it wasn't. I don't think it was a situation where he played poorly.
No. We had a guy that just performed a little bit better that we lost via injury. So special teams has been good for the Detroit Lions. Khalif Raymond's factored into that at times and done well. We as a return man, and the special teams has been good. Yeah, with the Chargers, and getting to the Chargers, we don't need the Chargers' best punch, and but I tell you what, we have a great quarterback that we're going to be facing. He's kind of a sleeping giant at times. It seems like sometimes it's just the production isn't always that consistent, and we could put that on Justin Herbert's back, or it can be in other areas too. We got a real aggressive-minded offense, and Brandon Staley as a coach. They're a team that has some balance to them. They can tempo you. They've got receiving threats. They've got a good running back in Austin Eckler. This is a good football team on paper. They don't always perform as such. Defensively, they've been pretty stout, and that can be talked about too. There could be easier games out of the bye, preferably ones that are played at Ford Field, but because that just seems to be a lot easier place to play no matter what. But this is an important one to get out of the gates and reestablish here and just beat a team that we should beat.
Yeah, and if Lions fans are going to take over a stadium, this would probably be the one. Not that they haven't already, but the Chargers haven't. I think there's a lot of bitter fans. I don't blame them for leaving San Diego, and oftentimes the opposition, no matter who they're playing, has a lot of a presence there, if you would. But Brad, your thoughts on keys to victory in this game against the Chargers?
Yeah, I think you get the Chargers doubting themselves early and let our fans take over that arena. I don't know. Maybe I just have too many scars of a Lions fan who's watched a team go out west and get beat. And I'm glad these guys that are on this roster don't have the same scars the three of us have, because there were years we just can't win out west. Cannot do it. Like, and the games were ugly and it was just, you just got beat bad. So I have that in the back of my mind going, oh man, are we in for this? Because I got us at 12-5. That means you got to lose 5 games. This would be 1 if my predictions comes true. Mm-hmm. I don't want it to be. I want the Lions to win every game. But I would tell you, Justin Herbert is got a great arm. Allen's out there running around. They got Joey Bosa. They got Khalil Mack. This is not a roster void of talent that we're playing against. Mm-hmm. So, 4-4 isn't impressive, but I don't think they beat anybody of note. We are going to be the measuring stick that the Los Angeles Chargers are going to check themselves against. If we can beat the Detroit Lions, and maybe we are what we could be, or maybe this Lions roster is just way too talented and we don't have a chance. I don't know, man. I'm cautious on this one. And it's probably more of me just being a history of getting beat out west. So I don't know how legitimate that is on the plane flying out to LA, and I'm glad for that because those guys, our group's got to be confident with the way this offensive line has come together, being healthy and having Montgomery back, and having this receiver core back. And
I think that brings up a good point. I mean, we kind of missed that finisher. We talked about having some red zone inefficiency in the Monday night game against Las Vegas. Especially when we crossed inside the 10-yard line, we didn't have that hammer and just where we can chisel away 2-3 yards and all of a sudden, 3-4 break 3 for 5, 6, 7 touchdown. David Montgomery is that guy. And then we have the full cast of characters up front. I do think that's going to help out with that issue right there. It'll be, just making sure that we do not turn the football over and we do those kinds of things. But that's a great point there, Bradley. We are going to have more effectiveness and success on short yardage and in near the goal line with Dave Montgomery back.
Well, yeah, you guys make some excellent points for this game. Before we go into our predictions and wrap this one up, Brad, you touched on weren't sure who they've beaten. Well, I'll tell you what, it's a tale of two teams. When they're playing teams like the Vikings, the Raiders, the Bears, the Jets, they've won those games. When they played teams like the Dolphins, the Titans, the Cowboys, and the Chiefs, they lost those games. So right there, they talk about the Miami Dolphins not beating good teams. The Los Angeles Chargers are the epitome of that based on who they've played and who they've beaten and who they've lost to. Now, again, it is what it is. They're winning the games they should win, but they haven't been able to beat the upper echelon teams so far that they played against. Detroit's one of those teams. So I feel you on that West Coast thing because it's just always something about it, man. The time change and the travel, and maybe there's too many distractions out there. I don't know, but this team's pretty focused, and I'll go on record now. I say I can't pick against the Lions in this one. I think if both teams I'm expecting the Chargers to bring their A game because that's one thing the Lions always bring out of a team, whether it's this year or any other year. They're gonna play tough because it's either you see this as a win that you have to have, or now, as you brought up, now they're a measuring stick for some squads. They're gonna be the hunted in this one, but I'm gonna take the Lions by 3 in this one, 27-24. Coach, I know earlier you said about a 10-point spread. Is that how you're feeling this one?
I think it's close. I think it's close. I can see it. I can see it like you do too. I can see it being within a score. We got somebody that's playing Fortnite behind me that I completely forgot that I'm in a podcast. So if you hear some extra noise, it's a guy that's must have done something well in the storm.
The world keeps spinning around, even though we're doing our thing, right?
So I apologize for that, and I'll make him listen to it tomorrow. I could see it, being close and kind of a battle. We're knocking some rust off, and we have to take care of things either late or not, fend them off and not quite pull away the way we wanted. But I do think, I'm looking somewhere in and around 27-17.
Yep, I feel that too. I like that. That's important. I like that. Brad, how you seeing this one?
I internally, there's a lot going on here. I mean, the history in me says no, but I'm believing what Campbell's doing. I believe in the mentality of this roster. I believe we always score more than 20. So let's score 27, and they'll score 23.
I like it.
And maybe they got the ball at the end, and Herbert's coming down, and Jerry Jacobs picks them off.
Oh, I like that detail. Attention to detail. That's how you win football games. I like it. Hey guys, this has been awesome. It's been fun. It's fun to talk about the Lions winning. I mean, it's fun to talk about the Lions winning. We're starving for it. Everyone is. It's a Lions fan, and it's a good thing. Exciting to look forward to. Now there's 9 games left in the season, and a pretty favorable schedule on the stretch. But it doesn't matter. What matters is Sunday against the Chargers. let's take that one home. Let's be 7-2. And then let's go from there. So for Coach Andy Shield, the Marine City Mariners, and for the Uper Brad Harrison, my name is Drew. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel, Sports Peninsula Podcast. Keep watching. Like the videos, comment on the videos. We welcome it all. We'll take care of everybody, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Take care. This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. To subscribe to the podcast, simply click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel's homepage and give us a like. You can also follow our audio podcast on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts, just to name a few. Give us a follow on Twitter. Our handle is @SportsPPodcast to check out our latest releases. Thank you again for watching and for your support. Remember, when you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.